Janine,
Hello. Do
hello.
Hi. Okay, so I think as far as I remember, I've always had really amazing highs. And when I'm in high, I'm like action, action, action. And then the more I've done the work, I get less lows. But when I have a low, it's like I'm mentally drained and can't do anything. So I'm wondering whether I'm an introvert or I do have ADHD. So I don't know if that's part of it. But I just wondered, is there like I want my coaching business to really explode, and I'm taking more action than I've ever done, but I want it
Mm.
to be more consistent. So it's like frustrating for me. And I just wondered from what you would, I don't know, what you would speak, if you would speak to that in, I don't know, a practice or something that would help me kind of be more consistent. And because I beat
How would you
myself
know
up,
if you were more consistent?
I'd have more calls in my diary.
Okay.
It would follow with coaching rather than my other business, which is teaching
Right.
people. Like,
So you'd have more consistent results would be evidence that you're being more consistent. Yeah. So if you had more consistent results, that would come from more consistent action, right? And so is your action consistent and your results not consistent, or is your action also inconsistent?
I think that action isn't as consistent as
Okay.
because when I do have coaching calls and I do get results, but I just think there maybe is a resistance there for me to be consistent. Success, maybe, I don't know.
Sure.
Um,
Well, consistent in what? I mean, there's a resistance to consistence in some things, but in others, you brush your teeth twice a day.
yeah.
Consistently? Yeah.
I
So there's not
mean,
resistance there. It's not consistency that you have resistance to. So what is it that you have resistance to consistency with?
to keep reaching out, I think.
Yeah,
I can
reaching
do
out.
that. Yeah, when I'm in a high, I'm like, I don't, got no fear
Yeah, yeah.
of the question. But then when I'm in my, like, in the kind of, yeah, I find it really difficult to kind of lift myself to do it. I have to be lifted.
Mhm. Mhm. Ah, okay. I have to be lifted to do it. I have to
Mm.
feel a certain way to do a certain thing. So there's there's that's half the story in my world when it comes to being,
Mm.
and maybe you've heard me say this. I think I said it when we were together in London that doing is the seed and fruit of being. Doing is the seed and fruit of being, right? So being is like the tree, and the fruit that hangs on the tree is both the is both the the doing is the fruit, but also the seed within that is the fruit. What do I mean by that? I mean that when you are being, let's take your example. When I'm being like super excited, I have the fruit of action of just reaching out to people, sharing about coaching, talking about coaching. That's the fruit, right? But what I'm saying is that contained within that fruit is also the seed, and that seed grows the being. And so when you take action to help somebody, you plant the seed of that being in you and you become more of that. You activate that way of being.
Mm.
And so you could have a different story that whether I'm up or down, I reach out to people. When I'm up, that reaching out is an expression of that being up. When I'm down, that reaching out creates upness.
Mm. No, I like that. And I think I'm doing that actually. I think I do it in a more of a, I do reach out, but maybe not as, do it more kind of by message rather than a voice note or,
Yeah.
not as powerful, but it's still doing, right? So it's
Yeah.
still creating that being.
Let's take this a little deeper. When I'm feeling down, when I'm in it, I can't always see this, but when I'm not in it, I can see that feeling down is typically, it's like if I'm sad about something, that's one thing. But if I'm just like down, normally that's like I'm down on myself. I'm not loving myself. And the downness is like I'm caught in a little bit of a vortex of like judging myself for judging myself. I call that meta judgment. I'm down because I'm down on being down. And it's kind of in a spin cycle of downness. And you, obviously one way out of that is to stop being down on yourself and to just not be down on yourself. And I usually start with like, could you love yourself for not loving yourself? What? Can it just be okay that you're not okay right now? And that's like the beginning of a liberation. That's awesome if you can do that. A quote unquote hack, a la Byron Katie, she has a worksheet called Judge Your Neighbor, right? And she has you judge somebody else in the world, all the things you can think of about that person. Then she helps you do the work on them and you get free from your judgment of that person. Then you realize by the end, it's like, oh, fuck, that wasn't about that person. That was all about me. I was
Mhm.
judging myself. And she's tricking you into letting yourself off your own hook. It's a clever tool to help you to get free from self judgment because all judgment is self judgment.
Yeah.
So, in that same way, to bring it back to what we're talking about, when I'm down because I'm down, if I can't gather the awareness, the consciousness, or the courage or the might to love myself, I can probably get the courage or might to love another person through service, through doing something for them, through helping them.
Mhm.
And when I'm down and I say, you know what, I'm feeling really down. So my medicine, I'm just going to go help some people. Hey, how can I help? Maybe I've reached out to one of you before when I felt down because I thought if I could just, help Emmerich a little bit, I know that helping him is going to actually help me. I just can't look at me right now. So I'm going to look at them and help them. And so we can use service and loving people as a way to pull us out of our own downness. If you love 10 people, you're going to feel on top of the world.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how the seed of being is the action as well as the fruit is the action. Does that metaphor make sense?
No, it really does, yeah. And love though, neighbour. I didn't love boy. Yeah, I've got the sheets as well. That's such a good idea. And I
Mm.
think you do that with I do like try and I probably love other people more than I do myself sometimes. And so I like that fact that I could just go into that worksheet and just when I need to. Yeah, that's really good.
I
Thank
want
you.
to say something about that last point you made too,
Mm,
because the stronger your distinction is between loving other people and loving yourself, the less what I just said will work because you'll be creating this story that me loving them isn't the same as me loving me. And so you can block the feeling of love. You can love people, you start feeling really good and you'd be like, oh, but that's not about me. So I'm gonna put that aside. And you don't let yourself get into it. Cause then you go back to this other story. Yeah, but I. And so the less in if you do the whole creating being program in Creator's Journey curriculum, you'll find out that there's this whole track of like creating yourself. And then with the creating clients, it's about creating other people. And by the end, these two tracks merge into one. And you realize, like, oh my gosh, whether I'm creating something in somebody else, creating a client, I'm creating myself, it's all the same thing. The
mhm.
self and other kind of blends. And so if you can reflect on what I've shared today and practice loving people with the understanding that, like, I'm just loving the idea of that person, which is part of me, then you can start to feel that loving others is loving you.
Yeah.
So I hope that by the end of our work together, you don't have that distinction anymore, self and other, and that
No,
problem goes away.
thank you. That's given me a lot to think about. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Janine.